You're still tuned in to Salam Media with myself, Salah Loma Kudiri. The time is 9:45 a.m. Central African time, and we're going to be switching gears now to, I think, a very, very important conversation as the situation in Gaza continues to dominate global headlines with the death toll now exceeding over 60,000 people, 60,000 Palestinians, I should mention, the vast majority being women and children, and the UN warning of a full-blown famine. The international community has largely been accused of watching on, with sanctions and diplomatic efforts doing little to stop the violence that the pariah Israeli apartheid state has conducted themselves with. But now there's a new and, to some, a highly controversial proposal that is gaining traction among some activists and legal experts, the mobilization of an international military force to intervene directly. This is the subject of an urgent online public workshop that is happening this upcoming Saturday, the 23rd of August. And joining me to give us a bit more insight about it is one of the organizers, Ousman Noor. He's the coordinator of the organization Protect Palestine. Ousman, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
I think let's jump right into it. Your workshop is calling for mobilizing a military intervention in Gaza. For many of our listeners, the idea of a more military force in a war zone could be somewhat counterintuitive, could be terrifying. But if you can just explain, the rationale behind this and what exactly, will be some of the key proposals and conversations that will be had in this workshop. What do you envisage, carrying out such an intervention?
Thank you so much. Well, firstly, it shouldn't be considered controversial because we know that Israel is ideologically committed to the extermination of the Palestinian people. We know that because we have been observing it for more than 70 years. The genocide that started in Gaza is the culmination of a long-standing policy of systematic apartheid and dehumanization of the Palestinian people. We saw Benjamin Netanyahu describe Palestinians as subhuman, and this is reflected in the sentiment all across Israel, in which 50% of the public are calling for the full total extermination of the Palestinian people. So this is something about the collective psyche of the Israeli state. It seeks to exterminate. It's straightforward. And that's what we've been witnessing on our screens for 22 months. There's a reason why Israel has bombed schools, hospitals, aid distribution centers. This is not a war. We must be very careful to not call it one, because a war is something typically fought over sovereignty or territory or resources. Yes, what Israel is doing has layers of that, but it is also the deliberate crushing of a captive population that we have all been watching without intervening on. And so this is not controversial to intervene. In fact, international law explicitly envisions that states would militarily intervene. In fact, it is perhaps the most, the greatest red line in all of international law, the norm that every state, even Israel, has signed up to, is the Genocide Convention, which obligates, it's not just an option, it's an obligation on states to prevent it. And customary international law, as well as political commitments made by states, every single state in the world has signed up to the responsibility to protect, which explicitly envisions that there would be military intervention as a last resort. Now, I can't see that there's any argument left. The International Court of Justice has made legally binding rulings, which Israel has ignored. The International Criminal Court has made arrest warrants, which Israel has ignored. The United Nations General Assembly has made consistent resolutions, which Israel has ignored. We know that because they are committed to extermination. And so we only have two options left. One is we watch the extermination and regret that it happened, or we intervene. And this sentiment, this conviction that there must be an intervention is rapidly growing, and we're going to be speaking about it with really a top-tier panel of well-informed spokespeople on the Palestinian issue, including Susan Abu Hawa, the Professor Richard Falk, the previous special rapporteur on Palestine, Craig Mohibud, people who are really experts in international law that are saying straightforwardly, we need to have a military intervention. It's that clear. To address your question about the hesitation that people have about throwing more violence into a conflict, it's a violent conflict. It's one-sided. It's an extermination. This isn't really a conflict. It's a crushing of a captive population by one side, one of the strongest military powers in the world, against a people that already before the Gaza genocide began were 45% children. One statistic that people need to know is in a war, in most wars where there's actual armies fighting each other, like Ukraine and Russia, this death toll for children in that conflict is 0.3%. Those who have been killed in that conflict is 0.3% are children. That is tragic, and we should be trying to stop that. The death toll for children in Gaza is 37.7%. It's more than 100-fold magnitude, and that's because it's not a war. They are killing everyone. And unless we stop them by breaking the siege, we're not talking about war, we're talking about breaking the siege, getting aid. There is hundreds of trucks of aid all around Gaza. There are emaciated, starving children on the other side. It is shambolic that we are allowing that to happen. Those trucks of food and aid need to get to those children. There is only one way for that to happen. It needs to be given to the children. There is only that Israel's not going to do it. We know they're not going to, so we need to intervene and do it. We also need to establish a no-fly zone. Israel has achieved its massacre largely through aerial bombardment. There's been, as you know, perhaps more than 8 or 9 weapons equivalent of nuclear bombs dropped on Gaza. We need to stop the bombing. That's a no-fly zone, right? This is simple. These are very, very common sense. I think even children who look at that saying, why are we not getting that food to the children? Why are we not stopping the bombs? It's actually a straightforward, common sense, in my view, approach to how this can be solved. The question you asked also was about who would do this. Every single state in the world not only has an option, but has a legal obligation to do this. To give credit to South Africa, it was actually your previous foreign minister, Naledi Pandor, who was the first to call for a rapid protection force. When did she call for it? October 2023, when the genocide began. She called for a rapid protection force, and she was largely, almost entirely ignored. So South Africa has taken the lead on this. It needs to be reinvigorated and revived, because I think perhaps now the world public conscience has woken up to Naledi Pandor really being on the spot right in the first place, saying that we need a rapid protection force. Other states, like the Hague Group for Palestine, which is a collection of states that are politically committed to the liberation of Palestine, which includes South Africa, Colombia, Cuba, Malaysia, Namibia, Senegal, states that have a history of overcoming imperial domination, or in the South Africa case, both imperial domination and apartheid. So these are states that see what's going on in Palestine and know that there is only one way to stop this. So we expect those states to step up at this point.
No, most definitely. And I want to expand a bit on the feasibility and real world challenges to this. I know this is maybe going to be spoken about at length on that workshop, but I think just for the benefit of our audience, if we can just talk practicality. The UN Security Council is essentially paralyzed by vetoes. NATO is never going to act. It's highly unlikely to act without a US-led, command, and the US still remains Israel's strongest ally. What makes you think this proposal is anything more than a theoretical exercise? And I'm asking from a devil's advocate point of view, and just for the benefit of the listeners also.
Yeah, well, just firstly, talking about the United Nations, it is a myth that the United Nations is needed for a military intervention. That is something that I think through just repetition we have come to think. But international law does not require the UN Security Council in order for states to conduct a military intervention to prevent or stop genocide. That law is actually very clear has been proven to be true, because when we look at the very beginning of where the Genocide Convention came from, it was the defeat of Nazi Germany. Now, imagine if the Nazis had no military resistance. Imagine if there were no allies. Imagine if the Russians hadn't come in to liberate the concentration camps. I mean, the idea is absurd that could have been achieved. When we know that, because the Nazis, like Zionists, are committed to a race supremacist vision of cleansing those who they consider subhuman or inferior. The exact same thing. So there are many examples of military intervention without the United Nations. So it's not needed. Actually, states should act now. They don't need it. All they need is to go and do it. But how will this practically happen? Well, look, civilians are doing it. Isn't it evident? We see the Freedom Flotilla coalition made several attempts to break the siege. These were just civilians. It is quite embarrassing for in my view, that civilians are trying to break the siege and getting captured and kidnapped, when states who have armies are capable of doing that. Now, is it realistic? Yes, because I think the sentiment is now radically shifting. We have gone through all of the diplomatic and judicial mechanisms. You know, I've been on your show before to talk about some of those and try to push some of those, but the final chapter of resistance, once you have exhausted all the other possibilities to prevent mass atrocities, must be intervention. Look, it doesn't take the whole world to do it. We know, as you said, NATO isn't going to do this. They are the ones collaborating and complicit in this genocide. But here is a moment of tectonic shift in global sentiment and potential global power. It only takes, imagine, South Africa, Colombia, Malaysia, Algeria, each sent 20 ships with their militaries on board and blockaded Tel Aviv and dared them to attack, because that would be a declaration of war. Blockading Tel Aviv port to stop the genocide is not a declaration of war. Delivering aid is not a declaration of war. Shooting down military aircraft that are illegally bombing Gaza in the midst of a genocide is not a declaration of war. So, but imagine you had 5 states, global South, anti-imperialist states that are fed up of seeing the Western states dominate and exterminate the people in Gaza. Imagine if they stepped up, what heroes they would be. I think the whole world, including populations in the US and the UK, would be cheering them on and finally recognizing that we have leadership that has been seriously absent in the world. So yes, it is possible. And I think that is the exact type of standoff that Israel needs to educate itself, that they are not going to win and we are going to intervene. And if those states stepped up, imagine the sentiment from the other states, the embarrassment of other states. Namibia would step up. Namibia, like South Africa's conviction against this apartheid. But imagine if Malaysia stepped up and Indonesia stepped up and the other states in that whole region said, well, if Malaysia's going, why can't we? That's the type of willpower that is now needed. The legal case is there, the moral case is there, the humanitarian case is there. What's lacking is political courage. And I'll say this, Salelo, I've been advocating for this non-stop every day for 14 months. And I can tell you, it is not just the governments that haven't clocked onto this. It is also the people. We need to get over this mind frame that only boycotts or divestments and sanctions is sufficient, because it is not. Israel is not going to stop the extermination if we boycott certain goods in our countries, because they've been doing it for 70 years and they've got all of the genocidal infrastructure to finish the final solution of total extermination. We need to get in. That's just clear cut. I think anyone watching, any child watching would say, how is it possible that we have, imagine watching from outer space and you can't see the divisions of countries. You would just see annihilation and you would see no one stepping in. That's the situation we're in now. So we do need to think in terms that we've never thought of before, in ways that may appear complicated, but that are actually very straightforward. If we want to stop Israel from bombing Gaza, we need to stop Israel from bombing Gaza. It's that straightforward.
No, most definitely. I want to bring the focus to the workshop on Saturday. Is aimed at diplomats, civil society, and activists. But what would you say is the primary goal? Are you trying to
Yeah,
build a legal case of some sort, a political coalition, or just simply to shift the overtone window on what
yeah.
solutions are possible when it comes to counteracting this genocide?
This workshop, by the way, within 1.5 days, we had 900 people register. I think it will go to 2,000, inshallah, by Saturday. We want this discussion on military intervention has been severely lacking in Palestine activism. I know that because I have been working on getting to this point for a long time, and it has unfortunately been very difficult to get spokespeople to talk about military intervention. So it is a case of hopefully igniting the fuse of the uprising. There needs to be a global uprising, and we want to light the fuse of that. So there will be diplomatic representatives, civil society. Everyone's welcome, by the way. But I mentioned that it's for them because it is designed with them in mind, but it's public. Anyone can register. I encourage anyone listening to register to take part in this. South Africa needs to be on the ball on this. So yes, it is to obviously set out the moral, legal, and humanitarian case. That is already there, but it is also to build political confidence. And I think having such notable, trustworthy, respected speakers. Not me. I mean, I hope that people consider me that, but really, it's these other speakers. Richard Falk, professor who has spent decades talking about the Palestinian cause as the UN Special Rapporteur, obviously has a lot of knowledge. Susan Abu Hal, you might have seen her speech in the Oxford Union. Absolutely fierce, dedicated, morally clear advocate on the Palestinian cause. Craig Mohiber and Professor Mazin Qumsiyeh from Bethlehem, tuning in from Bethlehem. And you know these people face risks in talking about this, but he said, I need to talk about this. Palestinians need to talk about this. So look, we hope to capture the public sentiment and mobilize. We need to get into the frame of mind of mobilization. Our campaign, the Protect Palestine campaign, has had several campaign actions, email letters, email writing to diplomatic missions and heads of states. We've sent thousands of emails, and these things are getting traction. So we don't just talk about it. We also figure out how to channel that outrage and bring it into political action. So that's also what we're concerned about. So I hope you'll come, Salelo.
No, most definitely, most definitely. I think there's something to definitely look out for. And I think just finally, Ousman, if our listeners, especially those who are in positions of influence, want to engage with this, conversation, how can they join the details and logistics
Yeah,
thereof?
well, we've made it
For
very.
Saturday?
The Protect Palestine is a community, actually. We have 8,000 individual members. These are people who have joined the network by signing up on the website. But we also want organizational endorsements. If you go to our website, you click on endorsements, you'll see about 90 organizations. They are each invited to weekly strategy meetings where we meet as a community to discuss how we mobilize a military intervention. And these organizations, by the way, what's wonderful about them is they are all grassroots. This is a truly bottom-up movement. We've got a yoga studio. We've got an organic farm. Yes, we've got Palestine, more traditional activist networks, but we've really exploded the boundaries of what civil society looks like. This isn't just Amnesty International anymore. These are grassroots individuals from all over the world saying, actually, yes, my primary job is to run a yoga studio, but I have a conviction in the need for military intervention, and I have influence, I have power. I want to be with you guys. So this is really revolutionary also in how we are mobilizing, how we are organizing. It's something I'm very, very proud of, and I encourage anyone to join.
Well, there you have it, Ousman. Thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure. I think, these conversations need to be had. I think, we need to realign, strategy. You can't do the same thing over and over again and expected different results. As you mentioned, boycott, divestments, and sanctions, they've been doing it for 70 years. It won't stop because you
Not
stop
that that's not
buying.
important.
Yeah.
But we need to go beyond it.
Yeah. No, definitely. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. Salam. Salam alaikum.
Ousman Noor coming to us live from Birmingham out in the UK. He's the coordinator of Protect Palestine, making the case of what is undoubtedly one of the most urgent and I think difficult conversations facing the international community today. Because just the sheer scale of the violence in Gaza, the destruction of an entire society, live streamed, we're all looking at it from different parts of the world, and the failure of traditional diplomacy to stop it, I think, forces us to consider options that were once unthinkable. So, maybe to many, while the call for military intervention is somewhat extreme and comes with immense risks, the question remains, if not this, then what? How many more children have to die before the world's red lines are actually enforced? We asked the question. What do you think this morning? Ousman Noor argues that when diplomacy fails, which is the case right now, and genocide is underway, military intervention becomes a moral duty and not just an option. Do you agree? Is it the world's responsibility to step in and stop the slaughter that we're witnessing in Gaza by force if it's necessary? And it's starting to look like that right now. You can engage with us. Our studio line is 0116800355, or you can send us a WhatsApp voice note or message on 0617660355. Otherwise, you can check out our various social media platforms. You can comment, you can share, you can like, and you can get your opinions heard. Otherwise, we've come to the end of today's edition of News and Views. Thank you so much for staying with us for the past 2 hours and 5 minutes. I'll be back with you again next week for the Tuesday edition of the show. I think Fasira Davids will be coming up next for the show. This is a mid-morning talk with Fasira Davids. She's having an incredible lineup of guests that you need to look out for. That's coming out from 11 until 1. So another wonderful, wonderful show coming up on the lineup here on Salam Media. But for myself, Salah and the rest of the team, everyone that made the show possible, we'll be back with you again tomorrow. Our studio line 0617660355. You can share, engage, talk to us. What do you want us to cover? What do you think of this military intervention to halt the genocide in Gaza? Is it the way to go? Has diplomacy failed? South Africa went to the ICJ. The ICC has warrant of arrest for Benjamin Netanyahu and all of his friends, but nothing is working. Nothing is being done. And life is going on as normal for the rest of us while there's a literal genocide that is unfolding in Gaza. Should we maybe rethink strategy? Should we rethink and explore other avenues? I'd like to hear from you. Otherwise, from myself, Salailo Makwidiri, and the rest of the team, shap shap.